Welcome to the Incredible Machines podcast, where we converse with incredible people doing incredible things to learn just what makes them so incredible. In this episode, we're thrilled to welcome Zayn Nabbi, an award-winning Durban-born South African journalist, producer, and passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion. Zayn has worn many hats, from a top 4 contestant on Survivor to a senior producer at CNN. And now he shares what's next for him, life after CNN. But you'll have to wait for that. Learnings from today include the importance of sport and sports development, the significance of opportunities to be educated abroad, faith's potential role in navigating challenging circumstances, the importance of honesty and authenticity, how voluntary leadership teaches valuable skills, how diversity through inclusion benefits in the long term, and much, much more. But without further ado, we bring you the incredible machine, Zayn Nabbi. Welcome. Here we are at the Incredible Machines podcast, where we converse with incredible machines, try to figure out what makes them incredible and learn from that. Today I'm super excited. I've got a very old friend, Zayn Nabbi, with me. And we're just saying we haven't seen each other in 24 years or something like that.
Yeah, over 2 decades.
Yeah. So Zayn is an award-winning journalist who's worked in international news for over a decade. Survivor contestant, finishing the top 4 there. So maybe get some tips on that. I love that. I used to love that show. Raised and schooled in Durban. So we went to primary school together. And high school together. We played rugby together. I remember
definitely did.
Zayn was my hooker when I was a prop.
Boom.
Hey?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
we were mean in the front row.
Yeah, we were hardcore. First degree from DUT, then a master's University of London. Very impressive.
Thank you.
In journalism. So Joanna with us today. And then I see a Harvard education there too. Which I stuck up. And then, so past role, or the title at the moment, was senior producer at CNN. So honored to have you here today, brother. So welcome to the Incredible Machines.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's so funny. I remember when we used to call you Oros. Does that name stuck, or is it gone?
Yeah, no, it does. People still call me that, yeah. No, it's proper.
Was it because it was your favorite juice?
No, because I was prop with you and you were hooker.
There we go.
And then my last
name.
But
you're a foot prop. That's what I liked.
No,
you don't find many
today.
props who can bodyboard, right?
Yeah. No, I don't know if you get any anymore. But I mean, the guys are looking pretty buff right now. So you're a sports journalist, but I think specifically as your sharp end of the wedge, okay? So I want to get to that because as I discussed with you, my sport is limited to the Springbok and then the surfing world.
Of course.
But so in the bit, like, so you're Durban, born and bred, DPHS, DHS, DUT, guy, how do you get to being the senior producer at CNN? Can you take us through your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, born and bred, very proud to come from this city. I think what is interesting is that I never ever thought I'd leave Durban. So when I was growing up and when I was about your age, sport was a very big thing for me. So 1995 World Cup is a memory that I won't forget. That's such a good moment. Mandela Pina lifting the shirt, the team winning, Chester Williams and that team. I'm even getting goosepimples now as I think back to Ellis Park and beating the Old Foe, the All Blacks. And then in 1996, probably the most seminal sports moment for me, more than the 95 World Cup, was the AFCON team that won the 1996 tournament. And why that stood out to me, it was one of the first times I saw probably Black excellence, brown excellence, people of dual heritage. And of course, there were white South Africans like Neil Tovey and Clive Barker who were crucial to that success. And that team, it showed me how maybe South Africans could do it together if we worked together. And one of the most untold stories, and I would love to do a long form on this, is that team, which was nicknamed Madiba's Boys, great Nelson Mandela, that was Mandela's favorite sports victory of all time, the AFCON winners in 1996. So when I look back, sport has been such a crucial part in my development, giving me inspiration, giving me opportunities to bond with people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, race groups. Because when you get together and you put your jersey on, or you put your armor on, or whatever you want to call it, you're soldiers for those 80 minutes, or, if you're playing cricket, maybe 5 days. But it's that opportunity to really develop. And playing in team environments, you always learn the skills that will allow you professionally to develop. You learn about teamwork. You have funny guys in your team. You also have hard guys in your team. You have guys who are difficult in your team. And you've got to find a way to cohabitate and to get on. So when the opportunity arose for me to go to London, it was actually via education, because I was working at E-News as a sports reporter. The 2010 World Cup had just ended. It was an amazing experience. Again, another seminal moment for me about how South Africa could put on these mega sporting events and do them successfully. And then I got an opportunity to study in the UK. And I jokingly say I went to drink beer and watch sport. And that was a part of it too. I got a Chevening scholarship to go to London. I studied at City University and managed to get a great master's. And when I was out there, I started working for CNN. And that was meant to be a very short period of time. And they said, oh, the World Cup's going to Brazil in 2014. Would you like to come? I was like, are you kidding me? A football World Cup in Brazil, going to the Maracanã, the spiritual home of football? How can I turn that down? And that sort of were the highs and what kept me in London and what kept me going. And then in about 2016, after doing, you asked what a senior producer does or a producer does. And at CNN, in those days, those of us based in London, our job's to news gather. So we go to the big sporting events. But the way that CNN works is they use experienced people in all areas. So I was even working on big news stories like the Nice terror attacks when Nelson Mandela died, the Manchester Arena attacks when Ariana Grande died. I worked on those stories. And I was getting pretty burnt out. I was getting pretty tired. And I wanted to come back to close to my family, my friends, good food and sunshine. And I was ready to leave. But then I found a way to stay. And part of the reason I stayed was because I met at that point the woman who'd become my wife.
Amazing. So there's a few things I want to ask you about that. Okay, so you've gone through that quite quickly, and there's so much to unpack there. It seems at the end there that you wanted to stay. Doesn't seem like that was the plan all along.
Mm-mm.
And they offered you kept getting offered these opportunities. Yes. So there's that thing about I seem to get the luckier I get, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes.
Do you think it was something in that? Why were you just so lucky?
I'm not quite Gary Player, but I think that was the phrase that he loves saying. Look, I think one of the things that London is, Jonathan, and I know you've got family in the UK and friends, is that it is an amazing melting pot of cultures. I think you can meet people from all sorts of backgrounds, and you can have all sorts of experiences because the flight paths out of London take you all over Europe and anywhere in the world. And if you're like me, you can get some good deals on low-cost airlines and fly for like 30 quid to Spain or Italy or, even get great deals to go to North Africa or wherever it might be. And that's the part I loved. And nobody teaches you this when you relocate to a different city, and particularly a big city like a London or a New York or Hong Kong or even a Joburg, is that it can get pretty lonely pretty quickly because these big cities, things move really quickly. So you meet lots of people, but do you make genuine connections? Mm. And I have to say, it took me years to actually do that. I was also in a job where I had the privilege of traveling the world, but we were doing like 3 months on the road. So you're traveling every 2 weeks, your body clock's shifting, your diet's changing. You come back and you've got to turn these big assignments and, the pressure's on to deliver to a great standard because you're working at a great brand like CNN. And then you sort of combine that all together, and before you know, you can be pretty lonely and pretty depressed, and you just don't realize it.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm going to reference Fight Club. I think I've done that already in this podcast. But there's that reference at the beginning when he talks about the intro to how he meets Tyler Durden, and he talks about your minute friends or your takeaway friends or something. He's got a line in there. I'll look for it. But they're in passing, so it's like you share these moments with them.
Yeah,
but
it's very transitory, isn't it?
That's it. That's the word. So But it seems like the sport. So the sport has got you there the whole way. I just want to jump quickly because it was very interesting me to see, and I never saw this season. I apologize if I did. I actually was a Survivor fan, and you finished top 4 in that.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, can you take me through how did that happen? Top 4 is a big thing as well, so everyone knows, because I can remember most of the top 4 people that I watched the seasons. How did you get there, and did you learn anything from Survivor that you took out into surviving the real world?
Yeah, I was so young when I did that show. I think I must have been 23. I was really young. I think I was the youngest person on that show. And something that's always meant a lot to me is faith. So, married together, an old school Catholic mom and my very evangelical Christian wife. And we sort of navigate those well. So faith, belief, having a relationship with Jesus is a very big thing for me. So I remember when I was going on to the show, they said, what's going to be your special item? And I said, I'm taking my Bible. People said, you're not taking a Leatherman? You're not taking a Swiss knife? You're not taking Flint? I'm like, I'm taking my Bible. And I said, I'm not here to beat anyone over the head with it because I completely respect other people's faiths, other people's belief systems. We're all entitled to that, and that's what makes the world great. And I said, but this is going to keep me. This is going to be my bread, my manna from heaven. That's going to feed my soul and keep me going when I can't have food. So Survivor making the top 4 taught me a number of things. One, I went into the show saying, I don't have a strategy. Like, I don't. I'm not really looking for alliances. I'm not really looking to blindside anyone. I'm just going to tell people what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and play the game with honesty and integrity. And I remember you watch back the shows as they come back, and you're almost like, I think they're portraying me as pretty naive and stupid here. But I was like, I would tell people I was going to vote them off. I would tell them. And, there were moments when that aligned with what the majority was doing. And there were moments that it didn't. And that sort of puts you in this weird place where you'll have people who are really tight and have each other's back, and you understand why, right? Because strength in numbers. And then I'm sort of this guy going, well, I think that on merit, it's Jonathan's turn to go this week. And they'll be like, no, but we need Jonathan for next week because we need the numbers. We should be taking so-and-so out. And I'd be like, no, but that's not how I play the game. And it was after the show when I sat down with the guy from my rugby club, and he said, no, but your strategy was honesty and integrity. That was it. You put your cards down on the table, and that's a strategy that worked for you. Like, why would you do it any differently? Making the top 4 was interesting because in our year, we actually had a final 3. And what they did just before we thought we were going to the last challenge is they reintroduced 2 people into the game. And one of the people who got reintroduced, Vanessa, ended up winning. And sort of my role on the jury then became quite crucial because I ended up being the swing vote who voted for her. And people were surprised because the other person sitting for the million was a lady called Jacinda. And we'd been in the same tribe from the start. But because Jacinda had been plotting against me throughout the game and sort of kept me as collateral to eventually push me off, which I was fully aware of, when it came down for deciding who was going to win, I was like, well, Vanessa actually hasn't treated me that badly. She's been pretty honest with me. I've already voted her off at one point, and I didn't really want to do that. But I voted her off because she asked to leave. And the majority of the tribe was going that way. So it was a combination of both, if I'm honest. I was like, well, this is my chance to reward somebody who has played the game with authenticity with me.
The way you did.
Yeah. And I remember voting for her, and then people were surprised. And I was like, well, it's not a surprise if someone's constantly trying to get you out. Are you going to give them your vote?
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. How's that? So, I love that. That because it's one of the rules that I live by and we have in our family is tell the truth or at least don't lie.
Yes.
And so living with that and maybe where it comes off naive is there's a lot of information and you don't need to share all of it. And then but people could look at what Zayn's hiding something. He says he's so honest. Why didn't he? So, it's good to hear that you played it the way you wanted. And then how has that translated? I mean, that's what I find interesting. I've just spoken to somebody as well that was was the coach of the South African team for MMA and Bahrain and that sort of stuff. And he sort of got exactly what I heard you say, that sports is just like the business world. You play with teams in sports, and you play with them, and they rub each other the wrong way or the right way or whatever, and that's how your team. How do you use that, like in the world of like business? It's like where people come in, they're wearing different jerseys now. How have you used that? Or
I think that's a great question. I bring it back to. Did you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes.
Okay, and a friend of mine says it's Robert T. Kiyosaki, right? And he said, yeah, but if this guy was so good at property, why is he selling books? It's got me thinking. But I think the principles he gives in the books about how you invest in property, how you can build your empire, they hold and they're good. But one of the lessons I learned from that book, and I'm not a big reader, I'm more an audio consumer, that's why I like podcasts, is that he said, if you ever want to learn how to lead men and women, go and lead at voluntary organizations, go and lead at amateur sport clubs, go and lead at places where you don't have any budget or anything to do things. So a big part of my life was actually being involved at Jaguars Rugby Club in Sydenham. It's a great community rugby club. What attracted me to it when I was 18 and I just left high school was that I was passionate about rugby, but this was a black and brown rugby club. And it was an opportunity to give back to a community that I've been a part of. It also helped that Barry Wilson, my former primary school coach, was there and he said, you're coming. But it was this opportunity to give back, and entering in that environment where you don't really have money and you don't really have anything else to attract people, you have to create an environment that enthuses people. They feel like they're getting great training. They feel like they're part of something. They feel like they're working towards a common goal. So it didn't matter that we finished 7th on the table or we finished 6th on the table, and in the good years, the first team would finish 3rd, because that was outstanding for us because of the lack of resources compared to the others in the league we were playing. It was that ability to motivate and get people on a common goal. And that is similar to how I think you bring that into any professional environment. Of course, there you have the ability to motivate with money. You have the ability to motivate with title. You have the ability to motivate with opportunity on trips to travel, conferences, opportunities to upskill with training. But at its core, you learn how to create an environment where people feel a part of something. Now, that can be difficult in corporate cultures, as I'm sure you'll be aware, where sometimes people who earn the biggest income or have a bigger title can sometimes get power trips. And what I've always found a challenge is trying to hold that to account and not placate and be fair, when maybe the organization ethos is to defer to the highest title or the person who earns the biggest salary.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, they're just keeping them humble. And then, I don't know, so are you playing any sports on the weekend? I know you've got...
That's a great question. My wife would like me to play more sport. Occasionally, I go to the tennis courts around the corner and I play tennis. I'm terrible at tennis, let me tell you that, with a buddy of mine who's just as big and overweight, but just to be active. And then I have a basketball. I'm a terrible basketball player, but I love to stand there and shoot hoops and just practice free throws. And occasionally there'll be far younger gentlemen looking to play pickup games, and they'll ask me to join, and I've joined.
Okay.
And I've pulled hamstrings.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I've been absolutely useless.
One thing, you never played poker, did you?
With friends, but not properly. I'd lose my money pretty quickly.
Did you struggle? Yeah, with the honesty.
Oh, I can't bluff.
Exactly. And then when you bluff, you get so pumped about it. Look, I actually don't know. We would love to set up a poker game around these tables here at some stage.
Okay.
Have you ever played?
I haven't actually.
Yeah.
I've been invited to a few, but it's never really tickled my fancy. So
yeah, it gets very interesting. I used to get so excited when I pulled off a good bluff. Just to transition back to,
sure.
I want to understand this because it's, so again, you seem to be getting pulled back all the time. You were going to do that. I need to get to the diversity part too, because there's that, we're going to get to the case study that you've that you sent me that'll be really interesting too. And I would have expected, with your love of diversity, maybe we would be speaking about the Stronger Together campaign and that sort of stuff, because so diversity and equity in teams, maybe that's something to just touch on. Is that what is so you? It seems like that's a huge passion for you.
Yeah.
What changed your mind from being the pull to the push of going back to the UK? Was it something to do with that?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of things that kept me there. One was my wife arrived onto the scene. Well, now she's my wife. So funny story there. We were living in a house share in Canada Water, which is sort of sits in between Canary Wharf and it's pretty close to London Bridge. It's a fairly central part of town. And as you know, rent's so expensive. So I was living there. A buddy of mine who was a banker was living there. Another buddy of mine who sort of worked more in a different sector of logistics was there. And one of my best mates, Chris Legg, was getting married. Yeah. He's a legend, right? So, and he was moving out, obviously. It'd be weird if they moved in with us. So he was moving out with his missus, and we were looking for a housemate. And basically it got to a point where we were a week before, we needed to pay the rent, and we didn't have a housemate sorted. And my wife had arrived. She's American, but she'd come via the US, Alyssa, and she's coming to do a master's at SOAS University, and she happened to be looking for a place. I'm pretty involved in getting the next housemate in because I want to make sure that I can cohabitate with this person. But in this instance, I had nothing to do with it. The other housemate founder, Steve, and she came in, and I was just like, if somebody can pay the rent, we're doing this. And if we don't like them, we'll move them off in a month. Doesn't matter what the lease says, we'll find a way to get them out. So she came in, and sort of it just blossomed from there. 3 months later, I asked her out because I'm the worst at asking anyone out. I'm terrible, like confidence, that type of thing. So in many ways, I think if we didn't live together, I probably wouldn't have asked her out. We probably wouldn't have ended up in London with 2 beautiful boys and a life that we're very grateful for.
Amazing. So that's the pull there. And then I just want to, you've transitioned from being a journalist, writer, lecturer, even I saw.
Yeah, I did that once upon a time.
And a podcaster now. We'll have the podcast, the link to your podcast in the show notes.
Absolutely.
I love some experience shares on that. To producer and senior producer at CNN. Just to check on, I heard a rumor that there's more to the story. And you're looking at some entrepreneurial ventures. Do you want to share what comes next for Zayn Nabbi?
Yeah, absolutely. And you spoke about diversity, equity, and inclusion before. And when I was talking about the 1996 AFCON winners, that was a crucial part of how it informed what I believed a successful team should look like. Fast forward to the Springboks of 2019 and 2023, and while I'll always love the 1995 World Cup team, the teams of 2019 and 2023 allow more South Africans to be connected with those players and with the team. And I'm a big believer, Jonathan, to be it, you got to see it. You got to see it. And I work at a big organization like CNN, and we're very diverse audiences around the world. But the people making the decision and the people in the majority of the workforce are from one culture, predominantly, or from one community. And I'm going, but this is making our team weak. So what we have to do is when we're recruiting new people in, we've got to make the workforce more diverse, because it's going to attract people to want to be here because they can see it and they believe they can do it. And also we're going to make ourselves commercially more successful because we're going to produce content that appeals to a wider audience. And that could be on age, that could be on race, that could be on socioeconomic background. So diversity in all forms, right? And that's why it was important for me when I was at CNN to be part of the Diversity Council. It was the first time they did it. They took senior leaders and they took members from the workforce, and we helped have conversations around workforce, around content, and around culture. And let me tell you, some of those conversations were pretty uncomfortable because you're talking to a leadership that is not really diverse. But to the leadership's credit, they were open to listening. They didn't action everything, but they were open to listening. And now the Diversity Council is a crucial part of the leadership of CNN and informing other policy. So it's reached a point where I'm a 40-something guy and I want to take what I've learned and open it up into something else, because I've always thought, wouldn't it be great to take what I've learned in South Africa at E! News and independent newspapers at CNN and bring it together in a company that I can shape the way I want, that I can build on diverse principles with my recruitment. I can make it as authentic as possible. And that's sort of been the birthing of Trinity Media and Events. We're going to focus on production support in the UK and Europe, production support for people specifically in the global south who can't staff and don't have the budgets to do so on a full-time basis in the UK. And we're also looking at running a few events like, you know, we were talking the other day off camera, and I'm going to ask you a question. What was it like the day you met Brian Habana? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so again, we use this as the demonstration of what an incredible machine is, but it was like that was a terrible day. It was a really dark day until I met him, but it was a dark day for me. It was very sullen and downtrodden, and then just seeing him enter the room and just going, that's Brian Habana, just being in his presence just lifted the whole mood. And it wasn't just me, I could see it, and I said, yeah, so it that's what an incredible machine is. It's someone that can walk in and change the room. And I think that's what I'm getting from you a lot, is that these guys, these gladiators, that when they enter the room, and they haven't just got there because they can kick a ball around. It's discipline, it's hard work, it's working in teams. I've never thought of it the way you've been explaining. Like, the same is true of them. I've worked in award-winning teams too, and they there's egos and there's disciplines and there's leadership and there's people passing the buck, and you've got to be very careful, and there are weak links and that sort of thing. And to get that team right is an effort, and that discipline, it just didn't come from nowhere. He put in the hours. There was a time where Brian Banner, I remember when we hadn't got that try record, and it was break. He there was like a couple months I was just watching, and I was like, my heart would bleed, just like, please score, Brian, so you can get out of this rut. Because like how random is that? I'm some like bodywater from surfer from Durban, and I'm like literally going, please, man, please, just everything. So it was a big moment, that, and bringing, and that those individuals, they can make such a difference. So what are you going to do with that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And this is where I'm trying to make, I'm not trying to make, we're going to do it. Just got to figure out how we're going to get the capital investment. I want to start by bringing Premier League legends to the Global South for events. So what do you mean by that? I want to have live events where we can fill out theatres, live shows. But the difference is, it's not going to be them just talking. We're going to take people from the audience to sit with them on stage, to touch, taste, see these legends and talk to them. We're also going to host VIP events because we know we need to make the sponsors happy and they need to be getting their value out of it. But the thing that excites me the most, and this is not just lip service, is I want to take these legends and go to communities that don't get that opportunity. So growing up in the Indian community in Durban, oh man, the Premier League, I mean, this is the holy grail. And United and Liverpool fans are everywhere. In my family, outside my family. And imagine if I was to get a United legend like Dwight York or Andy Cole, who won the treble, played for Sir Alex Ferguson, were in the teams with David Beckham, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, Mark Hughes, and Roy Keane, like legends. These dudes are legends. And we go, here's the big theatre you fill out. Here's a VIP event with Jonathan Olaf and, you know, the big wig MDs and CEOs and movers and shakers. And now we're going to take you to Chatsworth Stadium, where you're going to do a coaching clinic with these young kids who love United. They'll never be able to board the plane to go to Manchester and attend a game at the Theatre of Dreams. But for maybe 2 hours, they've been coached by a United legend. They've got an autograph signed, and they've got a real unique experience. So that is what I'm excited about, is getting a project like that off the ground. And I think that is also a way of give back because of everything you say. That moment we don't know what people are going through, but that moment could be something that turns someone's day around. It gives them a North Star to aim for something. And that's what makes me excited about starting that. And I don't mean to talk too long, but I have a podcast I'm a part of. It's On the Whistle. We've just recently been named or shortlisted as Best International Football Podcast of the Year in the UK, which we're incredibly proud of. It was funny, Jonathan, because last year we entered and we didn't get ranked. This year we didn't enter and were nominated. So it's funny how life works. And one of the founding guys on the podcast is Francis Nkwain, and he's Cameroonian. And he has a business that he runs in the UK and around the world. It's with player recruitment, agenting, and PR. And I met Francis 15 years ago in London at an event called the Best of Africa Awards. And why the Best of Africa Awards is a seminal moment for me, as Francis was doing is he was honouring African players and those of African heritage in the Premier League with awards. And he said to me, because he used to work at the UN, this guy's amazing, and he said, our greatest ambassadors that come from Africa are our sportsmen and women. And particularly when you look at football, those are the stars that people identify with, whether it's Didier Drogba or Mohamed Salah, or even somebody like Lucas Radebe, who the Kaizer Chiefs band named after the football team he used to play for here in South Africa, Kaizer Chiefs. And there was this brewing inside of me going, you know what? We need to utilize our greatest diplomats around the world and also in our own continent and our own countries and our own communities to inspire.
Yeah. I love that. I'm very excited to see that. I mean, yeah, the sportsmen, the sports figures, they just give so much hope. That the diversity and equity, you touched on the 2019, the 223 team. I remember so there was some, I look for patterns and things often. I think we do that as human beings naturally. But that World Cup was, I don't know if you heard about that. So it was every 12 years we win the World Cup.
Yes, the theory. Yes.
And then the theory was every you got to have the best fly half and scrum half combination, which we probably did. Debatable there, but I think we did. And then there were a few other factors, and then there were things that we had never achieved before. We had never scored a try in a World Cup final. We had never done that. But I loved what you talked about there is the diversity of that team and the way you can look at that team on a billboard and South Africans can identify with that. And then they think, wow, I could play rugby. It's not just like there's not the other sport. I can do that. It's like it's an absolutely beautiful thing. And I said this before the last World Cup. I said it at a wedding. I surrounded some sort of bigwigs and Unilever people and that, so much smarter people than me. But I said, after that 2019 World Cup, like we got 60 million people that want to be Sia Khaleesi, that want to be the Chess and Colby, Brian Abana, that sort of stuff, that can identify that the team. I don't know if you'll beat us again. I don't think you guys will beat us again, ever. And this guy out from the UK, and they laughed at me. And then 2 months later, we were the world champions again. So I understand there's lots and there's lots that can change, and sports doesn't like that.
Of
and
course.
It was a sort of a moment for me there. I maybe got lucky.
But isn't it incredible, Oros? Jonathan, we live in a country where, and let's face it, there can be political instability, there can be failing infrastructure, but we can produce elite-level athletes and elite-level teams. What does that say about our ability to use resource well? Whether you're the Springboks, whether you're someone, I find him quite a polarizing character, Dricus du Plessis, who can go, and I remember doing interviews with him, people were saying, if this guy fought Israel Adesanya like 18 months ago, 2 years ago, people worried he was going to get hurt. Then he wins the title. Do you know what I mean? And then we have Olympians who can go and win gold and get medals. And we've done this for years. I still remember Joseph Togwani winning in 1996 when he did like the TV thing, when he won at the Olympics. You know, we've had Baby Jake Mashlala. We've had across the board sportsmen and sportswomen who've achieved things. And I think sport again, and I'm sorry I'm very talkative here, but we can learn so much about how we use resource, how we can inspire when we don't have the funding or resource that you might get in Europe or North America or parts of Asia and Oceania.
Yeah, amazing. It is very interesting how you could be best in the world at something, and it, like, again, you don't have that same backing. I think you talk about Dricus and built in Africa and African built. And and there's a fighter there's two things here. There's Francis and Ghana as a fighter. I'd say that.
Francis and Ghana.
And I think previously UFC and a champion there. And when you hear his story, and I think he lost a fight early on, and it was a world champ that he lost to, and probably all deserved that. But when you hear his story, after that fight especially, it came out like how the stuff he had gone through, and he'd been homeless in France and lived in a gym, like lived on the floor there. And it's actually, you don't want to get in a cage with these people because they've been through way too much. It's not a fair fight. It's like that. It's not a fair fight because you're fighting a monster. He's like been through so much, and you've got your little coach that comes and tells you and puts on the oxygen mask, and you've got all these fancy things. Like these guys they're breaking through ice in their country to get into an ice bath where you've got the lovely machine. So to actually fight against those guys are monsters, and I think that's on the field too. But what I find with that South African team, they positioned it in that is the heart there is so amazing. But yeah, that's why I thought the campaign or ads you would have, because we look at an ad or a campaign on the show, and thought you would have maybe gone for that. But I love the one that you have chosen, the Last Dictator. So we'll just watch it quick.
Absolutely.
Nando's, and then we can talk about it before we transition to the next thing. Luke, do you want to bring that up or should I?
Yeah, let's go.
Live the life we choose. We'd fight and never lose. For we were young and sure to have our way.
No one should ever have to eat alone. So get a Nando 6-pack meal for $6.
So we're back. Yeah, I absolutely love that ad. What made you choose that one?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you go, I thought you would have gone with Stronger Together. And it's not that was a bad campaign, but I was trying to think front and center, what is an ad campaign that stood out the most to me? And Nando's, with their ad campaigns in South Africa for years, in my opinion, and you're an expert here, they've been light years ahead of everybody else because you remember that advert, and it's not a silly jingle, and it's not driven by a big personality. It's driven by, dare I say, controversy and something that sparks a thought in your mind. And it's like, are they really going there? Are they really going there on like big national platforms? And obviously, highly controversial ad at the time. Robert Mugabe is alive in Zimbabwe. If I remember, his health wasn't so good, and he's there playing these frivolous games with Robert Mugabe, with Idi Amin, with Saddam Hussein, and all these dictators. And I think it stands out to me because they struck the balance of thought-provoking, funny, pushing a boundary, and making something that everyone would talk about. And I think that is the success behind a great ad campaign. But do tell me if I'm wrong here.
No, you nailed it. It's love to hear from Luke too. But it's so you got to be remarkable, and then people will talk about your ad. They'll share it. Yeah, I don't know, Luke, if you've got any input on that. Like,
no, I don't.
You loved it.
I just really enjoy the ad.
I loved it.
I think I love it because it's controversial. And just enjoy that nature of humor and just pushing the boundaries and
absolutely.
And also don't take life too seriously. It's not like you get out alive.
Yes.
But
and this ad, I remember, was a real conversation starter.
Correct.
With my friends in the UK. Not in the UK, sorry, in South Africa. And when I got to the UK, people knew about this ad and they spoke to me about it too. And that, I think, how does this transcend borders?
You get to talk about the weather.
That's exactly, they've achieved exactly what they wanted, is they got you talking about it. it's brand awareness. That's
Yes.
all
Yeah.
it is. It's
100%.
So you're
they-
top of mind.
Exactly.
It's be remarkable.
So whenever you think, remember the Nando's
Yeah, I
campaign.
remember Nando's ad, Nando's
and that's
ad.
going to live on forever, you know,
So-
along with all the other stuff.
Yeah. So this to me was in our principles. It would fall under that think differently. Like it's a crazy, be strong, think differently. Like so, go out on a limb there, I think, and push the boundary and do something that no one else is really doing and doing it really well. Also, like it's totally absurd, but it's amazing in that respect, and that sets you up to be remarkable, being controversial and that being political. So that's the crazy, be strong. I think, Nando's are so, like you said, they're so good at this. It's urgent genius stuff. So it's like literally something happens the next day and they're out. And they've fostered such an amazing community. And they've got, so I had lunch with Robbie Bros, and I was very fortunate once to have lunch with Robbie Bros, and he talked about what they do. And they're very forward thinking, and they make investments now, like you're talking about too, long game investments. So they invest in culture and the arts. They'll sponsor exhibitions and artists specifically. They'll buy their art and put it in the restaurant so that because they want people in that restaurant. They actually want you to come and sit in there, enjoy it, and then there's arts. So they support creatives, and then guess what happens? Creatives support you.
Yeah.
So that you get the best creative work coming out because everyone wants to work on those campaigns. They want to work with that brand. It's brilliant. Yeah. The other thing, they've got a NPO that, they wanted to cure, they are working towards curing malaria in Africa. And specifically, it's interesting. This is a clever piece of business too, I think. Robbie Rosen said in that talk that was one of his favorite things to work on. It's the best thing. It's interesting when you see leaders do that, like Bill Gates, or they'll, in the same category, transition to talking about the best work they've ever done is the non-profit stuff. And it's like, okay, cool, well, why aren't we just doing that then? So do work with purpose, which you talked about earlier. The interesting thing that they target in Mozambique with that, their foundation, is getting the farmers there cured and ridding them of malaria. Their product relies on those farmers. Actually, Nando's source the hearts of the peppers.
That's a great investment for the future.
Yeah, because if they don't want those farmers to go anywhere. They want those survivors to live long, happy lives and create peppers and the sauces and all this sort of stuff. Where Nando's gets that, and it's like, so it's symbiotic. It's a business being very clever about talk about with the Discovery do this really well. They want you to go to gym so that you never call them back again because you're healthy, and then you just pay your insurance. Outsurance have a lovely campaign where they actually, when load shedding first started, they had this, and I'm not sure if they still do this. They were in the traffic circles with the traffic lights down, navigating traffic for people, just with the big brand Outsurance on it. So you get that brand impression, we would call it in the digital world, a brand impression, bang. But you know what you also did? You didn't crash your car, which is great. So you yay, thanks for that, Nando's. Yeah. Thanks for that, Outsurance. And then what's great for Outsurance is because you didn't crash your car, they didn't get the phone call. Hey, I crashed my car. I need you to cough up money and pay for. They don't want to hear from you ever again. They want you to pay the $3.95 every month or whatever it is, and never hear from you ever again. So very clever. Just on this last thing on this Nando's, I don't want to rush things.
No, it's all good.
But we talked offset on it quickly, and they pulled this ad. So and then now you can quite easily find it. So that could fall into an always on category. So always on is just the beauty of digital media, is being able to chop and change. And I've spoken about this before, but we had a campaign that went live, and we were sending 4 people to Paris. And then the week of that weekend, the week of the launch, the Paris attacks happened. Now, nobody wants to see the Eiffel Tower on social media with a win. Like, you can turn it off. You can't turn off a billboard. You can't turn off the magazine print with that Eiffel, but you can turn off the digital stuff. So apparently huge political pressure on this, which is interesting. I think, Luke, you brought it up. And then they switched it off. But people... The thing is, when it's that remarkable, people would have downloaded it themselves. They'll upload it for you. Yeah. So your community start to upload it. They start sharing it on WhatsApp and stuff like that. Have you seen the ad? So That's what they do. And one of the things I've heard that they do really well is they'll launch their ads on a Friday or a public. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know about that?
Yes. Well, I know they did it with this one, and they've done that with a few of their ads because no one can take action over the course of a weekend.
And then clever. So you just
So
have
good.
it play on the weekend. You get that spot during the rugby or the soccer, and then you pay for that. And then Monday you deal with the problem. So your future you got to worry about, but it'll be we'll just pull it down. Sorry guys, we'll pull it down. But by then everyone's downloaded, shared, and all that sort of stuff. So there was something that you said prior to that. I think it was something the way that it made you feel.
Yes.
And it ties into your quote that you've chosen. So I'm going to read this quote, the Maya Angelou, attributed to Maya Angelou here. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I got shivers. I've had shivers 3 times at least during this episode because you're talking about the Bafana and Bafana win and Madiba's. Madiba's the ultimate incredible machine in my mind.
Yes.
But why that quote? Why is that so important to you? Why do you think it comes up?
Because even now, when you say Madiba and that moment and that emotion, I get, the hair standing up on my back. A lot of hair these days. But it's something that I've, particularly as I've gone into Trinity Media and events, is now you're trying to get contracts with people, whether they're outlets or sponsors. And I'm now going back to people that were in my network and in my circle. And I might not have seen you in, 20 plus years, but I remember Jonathan Olaf when we used to play cricket on Prep Topfield, and he used to come in with red cheeks because we've been running around at Big Break playing cricket. And you always had this cheery smile and this friendly demeanor, and you made people feel so good. And that's like how I remember Jonathan Olaf. I might remember other guys as bullies or other guys as aggressive or whatever it might be. Or you were so chilled after you got off the waves and, you were so happy. And I think ultimately we can do great work, whether you do an ad campaign or I'm doing journalism. But what's always been important to me is, and sometimes we tell really important stories where you've got to balance milking somebody's emotional welfare and, what I'm phrasing this really badly, but they've gone through trauma and you don't want to be seen to be monetizing trauma or that experience. And you want them to maybe look back at that experience of storytelling if it's something that's particularly traumatic, whether it's the Paris attacks, Nice attacks, or everything that's going on in the Middle East at the moment. You want them to feel like somebody came in there and they were compassionate and they cared about getting the story right. They didn't come here to exploit my trauma. And that's how I always think about it is
Sorry, the gift of the givers do that really well.
100%. And it's funny story with the gift of the givers. There was the xenophobic attacks in about 2010. And I remember they came to the E-News office and they actually gave us some blankets to give out. So I have a lot of respect and time for that organization. And where I'm going with this is how they make you feel, whether that's in your personal space with your family, whether that's in business, whether that's in your passion projects. You can be the most successful person in the world, but if you made someone feel cuck, they're going to remember it.
100%, dude.
Doesn't matter what they've done. Doesn't matter if they've given you $3 million investment, angel funding, or whatever it is. But if they're arrogant or they've dangled it in front of you, they make you feel rubbish, you're going to remember that.
Yeah.
You'll take the money. I'll take the money. But I'm just saying, you won't forget how they'll make you feel. And that's important to me, is that we treat people well and we treat them with respect. Because ultimately, that's our legacy. It's not our bank balances. It's not our awards. That's our legacy.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I love it. I think, we'll have links to everything in the show notes. And thanks so much. I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover. Anything else you want to say?
Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me on your show. It's a pleasure. Your studios are brilliant. I'm hoping there's a way we can work together. And I just wish you the best with this and nothing but success, my friend.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming on.